The sound of tearing fabric wasn't loud, but it was violent enough to silence the entire ballroom. Rip. Kendra stood frozen in the center of the Santos Mansion's gold-trimmed gala. Her black maid's uniform now hung loosely off one shoulder, torn right down the chest, exposing her plain white camisole. But Kendra didn't cover herself. Instead, she dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around the small, trembling boy hiding behind her legs. "Look at them," Cassandra Santos laughed, swirling her wine glass. She pointed a manicured finger at Kendra's 6-year-old son Malik. "I told you we had rats in the walls! Now they're breeding in the ballroom!" The high society guests giggled nervously. Kendra squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for security to drag them out. Slam. The heavy double doors crashed open. The music cut out instantly. Rafael Santos, the king of Atlanta's underworld, walked in. He was wearing a tuxedo that cost more than Kendra's entire life, and his face was a mask of pure thunder. He didn't look at his wife. He walked straight toward Kendra. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, terrified. Rafael stopped inches from Kendra. He towered over her, casting a long, dark shadow over her and Malik. "I told you!" Rafael roared, his voice shaking the crystal glasses on the tables. "Never to bring him in here!" Kendra flinched, pulling Malik tighter. Tears pricked her eyes. The guests exchanged, knowing looks, of course. The boss is angry. The help broke the rules. But then, the world shifted. Rafael didn't call security. He ripped off his tuxedo jacket. In one smooth, desperate motion, he dropped to his knees and wrapped the warm, heavy silk around Kendra and her son, burying them in his scent. He stood up, turning his back on them to face the room. He wasn't blocking the guests from Kendra. He was blocking Kendra from the guests. "I didn't tell you to keep him out because I was ashamed," Rafael said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper that carried more danger than his shout. He pointed a finger straight at his wife. "I told you to keep him out because I cannot protect him from the garbage in this room." To understand how the most dangerous man in the city ended up on his knees protecting a maid, you have to go back 3 weeks, to the moment he almost killed her. It was 2 a.m., 21 days earlier. The Santos library smelled of lemon polish and old paper. Kendra was on her hands and knees, scrubbing a coffee stain out of the expensive Persian rug. Her back ached, her hands were raw. Nobody looked at Kendra twice. To them, she was just a uniform. They didn't know that 3 years ago, she had been the youngest literature professor at the state university. They didn't know she was scrubbing floors, only because the medical insurance for Malik's condition cost $2,000 a month. She stood up to dust the heavy oak desk and froze. There, sitting open, was a first edition of Don Quixote. Next to it was a notepad where Rafael had been working on a translation. The note read, "To conquer fear is to kill it." Kendra bit her lip. It was wrong. The academic in her couldn't help it. The intellectual hunger she had been starving for years took over. She picked up a pencil with a shaking hand. She crossed out the word kill and wrote, "Befriend." Click. The sound was unmistakable. The safety of a pistol being clicked off. Kendra dropped the pencil. She spun around. Rafael Santos stood in the doorway. He looked exhausted, his tie undone, but his eyes were sharp and cold. The silver barrel of a handgun was pointed directly at her chest. "Who sent you?" Rafael asked. His voice was flat. "The Ivanov family? You have 3 seconds before I paint the wall with you." "Nobody," Kendra gasped, holding her hands up. "I was dusting. You were writing." Rafael stepped closer, the gun not wavering. "Spies write. Cleaners clean. 1, 2. Your translation is wrong," Kendra blurted out. The room went dead silent. Rafael blinked. The gun lowered just an inch. "Excuse me?" Kendra trembled, but she stood tall. She wasn't a maid in that moment. She was a teacher. "Cervantes, chapter 12, she whispered. "He didn't write that a king must kill his fear to be strong. He wrote that a man must befriend his fear, so that he never has to walk alone." Rafael stared at her. He looked at the woman in the cheap polyester uniform, expecting to see fear. Instead, he saw intelligence. For the first time in years, someone in this house wasn't trying to shoot him or kiss up to him. Someone was actually correcting him. Slowly, Rafael holstered the gun. He walked past her to the desk and looked at the book. He ran his thumb over her pencil mark. "Get out," he muttered, not looking up. "And leave the pencil." Kendra ran. She thought she had just barely escaped death. She didn't realize she had just started a war. Now, as Rafael stands between his wife and the maid, a question hangs in the air. Rafael is a man who respects intelligence more than power, but he is trapped in a world built on violence. If you were Kendra, and you knew this man was dangerous enough to kill you, but the only one who truly saw you, would you run to save your son, or stay and let the monster protect you? He told her to leave the pencil, and for the next 2 weeks, that yellow pencil became the loudest thing in the silent mansion. Kendra didn't stop being a maid. She still scrubbed the marble floors until her knees ached, and she still polished the silver until she could see her own tired reflection. But the air in the house had shifted. Every morning, Rafael left a stack of sensitive documents on the edge of his mahogany desk with a sticky note that simply read, "Clean this." To anyone else, it was an order to dust. But Kendra knew better. With her heart hammering against her ribs, she would open the files. They were business contracts, territory negotiations, and historical alliances. And just like she used to grade papers at the university, she would take her pencil and write in the margins. This demand implies weakness. Check the translation on page 4, they are lying to you. Too aggressive. Offer peace, but hold the weapon. She was terrified every time she did it. She was correcting the Don of Atlanta, a man who made grown men tremble. One evening, Rafael caught her in the hallway. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the floor. He didn't smile. He didn't touch her. He simply reached out and pressed a cold, heavy object into her palm. Kendra looked down. It was the iron key to the library, the only room in the house that was off limits to the staff. "Stop cleaning the floor in there," Rafael whispered, his voice rough with something that sounded dangerously like respect. "Start sitting in the chair. You're wasting your mind on my carpet." It was more intimate than a kiss. He wasn't giving her money or jewels. He was giving her access to his mind. But secrets in a mafia house don't stay buried forever. Rafael needed to know who she really was. He couldn't afford to trust a ghost, no matter how brilliant she was. He ordered a level 5 background check. 2 nights before the gala, Rafael sat in his office, swirling a glass of whiskey. His head of security, Marco, walked in with a thick manila file. He placed it on the desk like it was a bomb. "Boss," Marco said, sweating. "She's clean, no wiretaps, no police connections, but you need to see the records from 10 years ago. The State versus Doe trial." Rafael's blood ran cold. That trial was the darkest moment of his life when he was just a young street soldier accused of a murder he didn't commit. The district attorney had wanted the death penalty. He grabbed the file, flipping past the police reports until he reached the jury information. He froze. There, clipped to the page, was a grainy black and white photo of the jury box. There were 12 people. 11 of them had voted to hang him. But juror number 8, a young, serious university student with glasses, had refused. She had hung the jury. She had demanded they look at the evidence, not the tattoo on the defendant's neck. Juror number 8 was Kendra. Rafael dropped his glass. It shattered against the hardwood, whiskey soaking into the rug. "She didn't just clean my floor," Rafael whispered, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "She saved my life. I'm walking this earth because she was stubborn." He stood up, grabbing his jacket. He had to find her. He had to tell her that he knew. But while Rafael was discovering the truth, his wife Cassandra was discovering the weakness. Down in the servants' quarters, Kendra was packing her bag to leave for the night. She checked her phone, a text from the babysitter saying everything was fine. She smiled, finally relaxing. The door clicked, locked from the outside. Kendra spun around. Cassandra was sitting on Kendra's small, lumpy bed. She was holding Kendra's phone. "Who is Malik?" Cassandra asked softly, her voice dripping with poison. Kendra stopped breathing. The room spun. "Give me my phone." Cassandra smiled, but it wasn't happy. It was predatory. "I sent the babysitter home, darling. I told her the madam sent a car for the boy. He's here, upstairs, in the basement." Kendra lunged forward, the maid mask vanishing instantly. "If you touch my son," Cassandra held up a hand. "I won't touch him. Not if you do exactly what I say. Put on your uniform. We have a gala to attend." "Why?" Kendra cried, tears spilling over. "Why are you doing this?" Cassandra stood up, smoothing her silk dress. "Because Rafael looks at you like you're a queen." And tonight, I'm going to show everyone that you're just a rat. Kendra had no choice. To save Malik, she let Cassandra drag them into the ballroom. She let Cassandra tear her uniform. She let the room laugh. And that brings us back to the moment the doors slammed open. When Rafael walked into that ballroom and saw Kendra on her knees, he didn't just see a maid being bullied. He saw the woman who had saved his life 10 years ago, being humiliated by the woman he was forced to marry. He didn't rip off his jacket to save a servant. He ripped it off to protect his savior. Now you know the full truth. Rafael has just publicly sided with a servant against his own wife and business partners. He has exposed his heart to a room full of sharks. If you were Rafael, and you just realized the woman on the floor is the reason you are alive today, how far would you burn down your own kingdom to keep her warm? And that brings us back to the ballroom. To the moment the music died, the silence in the room was heavy enough to choke on. Rafael stood shirtless under the bright chandelier, his tuxedo jacket wrapped tightly around Kendra and her son. Cassandra recovered from her initial shock. Her face twisted from embarrassment into a sneer. She knew she couldn't win on morals, so she played her ace card, money. "You think this is romantic, Rafael?" she screamed, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You can't protect her. My father controls your supply lines. He controls the ports. If you walk out that door with the help, you lose everything." The guests whispered nervously. She was right. In their world, money was God, and Cassandra held the purse strings. Everyone expected Rafael to hesitate. They expected him to realize he couldn't afford love, but Rafael didn't yell. He didn't pull a gun. He smiled, a cold, terrifying smile that didn't reach his eyes. He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a small, leather-bound book. It was the copy of Don Quixote from the library, the one Kendra had corrected. He held it out to Cassandra. "Read page 40, Rafael said calmly. Cassandra blinked, confused. The tension in the room shifted from fear to bewilderment. "A book? You're giving me a book? Read it," Rafael commanded. Cassandra snatched the book and opened it. Her face went ghost white. The pages inside were hollowed out. Resting inside wasn't a bookmark, it was a flash drive and a folded ledger. "That," Rafael's voice boomed, addressing the entire room, "is the record of how your father has been stealing from the commission for 5 years. I don't need his money, Cassandra. I own his life." Rafael turned to Kendra. He stepped aside, giving her the floor. He wasn't hiding her anymore. "Kendra," he said softly, "what does the inscription say?" Kendra stepped forward. She wasn't trembling anymore. She looked at the woman who had torn her clothes, and she stood tall. "It says," Kendra whispered, her voice clear, "justice delayed is not justice denied." Cassandra dropped the book. Security guards, Rafael's loyal men, stepped out of the shadows. They didn't touch Kendra. They walked straight to Cassandra and her father, escorting them out the back door. No shots were fired. No blood was spilled. Just the brutal, silent weight of the truth. Rafael turned to the room full of stunned elites. He put his arm around Kendra's shoulders over his jacket, over the torn uniform. "Dinner is over," he announced. "My family's going home." He picked up little Malik, lifting the boy onto his shoulders. Malik laughed, holding onto Rafael's hair as they walked out the front door, leaving the garbage behind. 6 months later, the library doesn't look dark anymore. The heavy drapes are pulled back, letting the warm Atlanta sun pour in. Kendra is sitting at the mahogany desk. She isn't wearing a maid's uniform. She is wearing a sharp navy blue blazer. She isn't cleaning the desk. She is signing papers for the Santos Literacy Foundation. She hears footsteps and looks up. Rafael is leaning against the doorframe. He looks younger, less tired. He isn't holding a gun. He's holding 2 cups of coffee. "Director Lewis," he teases, walking over to set the coffee down. "The board is waiting for you." Kendra smiles, a real, full smile that reaches her eyes. She picks up her yellow pencil. She taps it against the Don Quixote book that sits proudly on the desk. "Let them wait," she says. "I'm teaching my son how to read." Under the desk, Malik is sitting on the expensive Persian rug, reading a picture book. Rafael sits down on the floor next to him, the king of the underworld, sitting on the carpet in his dress shirt. "Read that part again," Rafael says to the boy, pointing at the page. "The part about the giants. They say you can't choose who you fall in love with. But that's a lie. You choose every day. You choose between the safety of a mask or the danger of being seen. Kendra spent years hiding her brilliance to survive. Rafael spent years hiding his heart to rule. It took a torn dress, a Spanish novel, and a moment of insane courage to realize that they didn't need to hide anymore. She saved his life in a courtroom. He saved her dignity in a ballroom, and in the end, they saved each other from being alone. If you believe that true love is about protection, not just passion, like this video. And tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you are hiding from the world that you wish someone would see?